Good afternoon, Tigers. It is difficult to remember, but about 20 or so years ago, we were governed by a city manager. And we had a first among equals form of government where the mayor was more often found at Pepin's enjoying a 3-hour lunch than they were at City Hall. And while David Fisher was certainly our first official occupant of the strong mayor's office, Rick Baker was truly our first strong mayor. Mayor Baker's accomplishments are too long to list, and that is why he continues to write books, so that he can remind us of them. Like many of you, I try to read Seamless City when I'm not reading the Bible. And I hear there are thousands of copies at the Downtown Partnership available for your perusal. One accolade about Mayor Baker does stand out. An online, favorable online website, not in St. Peter's blog, it was called the Daily Beast, and it was helmed at the time by the legendary Tina Brown. They did name Mayor Rick Baker the best mayor in the country. Rick left office in 2009 after serving for 8 years, and since then, residents throughout the city have been asking, what the hell do we have to do to get rid of this guy? I talked with Bob Buckhorn about this, and the deal was, we got Dick Greco, they got Baker, and a mustache to be named later. And clearly, that deal has fallen through. Rick is here today to try and convince us that A, soccer is a sport, and B, that we should transform our beloved waterfront baseball stadium that once housed Stan Musial into a state-of-the-art soccer day. Obviously, Rick doesn't believe the polls that show that the May 2nd referendum is going to pass with a wider margin than Vladimir Putin's re-election. So let's hear what he has to say, and then ask him in 15 different ways whether or not he's going to run against Rick Tracy.
Well, good afternoon. You know, I usually ask who's introducing me before I come. Is this radio? Do I need to have this radio with me too? I'm gonna hopefully radio question. Well, good afternoon. It's good, Peter. Thank you for that generous introduction. And, I've got 2 other books for you to read too, so I'd like to get them on your nightstand if I can, to make sure that you're quoting them and selling them for me. Well, it is. I'm here to talk about Rowdies, and I've been to Tiger Bay many times over the years. The first one I ever spoke for was my first mayoral debate in 2001, and I think they had those doors open, and it's packed crowd all the way through. Remember that, Gregory? That was a wild time, an interesting time in the city. It was a very interesting transition time in the city as well. But I've been here many times since then. All good memories, and I thank you for bringing it back. I want to talk about Rowdies. And I'm going to first talk about how many here have been here longer than 10 years, longer than 20 years? Okay. So I have a perspective. You have a similar perspective. Now, I came into St. Pete in the 80s. And in 1985, my fiancee, Joyce, who I've been married to for 31 years now, was coming to visit me from Tallahassee. And I was working in the old Florida National Bank on 7th and Central, which is kind of, it was a big deal at the time. Most of the major offices were in that building. And it's next where the Shahuli is now. And I had to work over lunch, so Joyce decided to go out to lunch downtown. And she starts wandering downtown St. Petersburg in 1985, looking for a place to eat lunch. And she eventually came upon the Howard Johnson's that used to be in the old, what is now the Municipal Services Board. And she went in there, it was very run down, and there were roaches running across her table at the time. And of course, back then, you really didn't hang around downtown unless you were going to the yacht club or going to the Manhattan. You don't come downtown, right? At lunch, for my law office at the time, we would, as a fisherman's halls, and we would go out to US 19 to get lunch. And that's kind of what downtown was. And then you fast forward to today. And I think we have the coolest downtown in the southeast United States. It's got so much going for activity levels, restaurants. We've become an arts and cultural center. And lots of vibrancy and activity. Everything, we still have work to do, but really much of it. And in between then and now, bit by bit by bit, things happened to progress it along the way. So in 1990, when I first got here, when y'all remember that Illinois had been closed for 17 years, so there was a lot of discussion about tearing it down and making it a fishery for something out in the bay. Fred Ness came in and put $100 million into that, along with a lot of investors. And thank God that he did. And so that was, I think, an important step for our downtown. And Andy Hines, what is now Duke Power, was Ford Power back then, decided to build the Bank of America building, which is now the Priatech building. And that was a big step, I think, for the ongoing development of downtown. And then our museums would expand. And we decided to build a dome when we had no baseball stadium. When we had no baseball team. And that was, you might recall, a little bit controversial here in the city. And that effort went forward, and we eventually got a team. And then when I was in office, we continued to work with it. We worked on Beach Drive, and developed that, and bringing Dolly to the waterfront next to the Mahavik, and redeveloping Mahavik. And all of those things, the reason I talk about all those things is because I think each one of the things that you do in the city, piece by piece, specifically talking about the downtown, but really the overall city, bit by bit, it's making it a better place. And I say that to say, I think that's what the Rowdies are and can be for the city. That's why I've been for it from the get-go. The Rowdies, you all might recall, since you've been here a while, back in the 70s and 80s, played over in Tampa, the old suburb, the big stadium at the Buck Stadium. And they would get 30,000, 40,000 or more people a game for the game. Of course, that was before the Bucks, that was before the Lightning, that was before the Rays. That was it, right? And they were, everybody was, lots and lots of folks were excited about the Bucks. They had the Rowdies was the pep band, the Fannies was the name of their family, the Rowdies was the name of their cheerleaders, and they had the song on the radio, and everybody seemed to know the Rowdies song. I still knew the Rowdies song 20 years later. And there was an enthusiasm at the bottom. And then soccer in general kind of went away. And then it worked on coming back. And a few years ago, it did come back. And then 5 years ago, the Rowdies came to St. Pete. We used to play indoor soccer or Bayfront, but now they've come back to St. Pete to play in Atlantic Stadium. And then 3 years ago, the ownership of the Rowdies came to us and talked to me about the fact that they were in financial distress and they needed somebody to buy the team, or we probably wouldn't have it. So I talked to Bill Edwards about it, who I'm now working with Bill and the Edwards group, doing a lot of different things. But at the time, I went to him and said, what do you think? And we talked about how this could be a good thing for the city. He had never been to a soccer game, at any game. He had never been to a Little League game or a high school game or professional. No, we didn't know anything about soccer. And in fact, the first time he went to a game was after he'd already bought the team. So that's pretty bold, I think. I'll buy a team and then I'll learn about the sport. But we had done a lot of research on soccer in the country, and one of the things we learned was that MLS, Major League Soccer in America, for instance, now outdraws both the NBA basketball and NHL hockey in attendance of more than 4,000 people per game today. And if you don't think about that, but if you were in Portland, or if you were in Kansas City, or if you were in Seattle, or if you were in Atlanta, or now if you were in Orlando, you would see it. You would see the excitement of soccer, the enthusiasm that it draws, and the attendance that it draws for a community. And that is really happening very good. So we've been talking about whether that's something that would be good, whether Major League Soccer would be good for St. Pete. We are now in Division II. So there are two divisions, well, they're both divisions, but Major League Baseball, so you have Major League Baseball and minor league baseball divisions. Soccer, you have Major League Soccer, and then you have Division II, which is USL, and actually NASL, they're both in Division II right now, and then other divisions beyond that. So we're in Division II right now, in the USL. And so the question is, should we seek to become a Major League Soccer franchise? And last December, the Major League Soccer announced that they were going to expand by 4 teams. 4 cities are going to get good Major League Soccer. They have 24 now, they're going to go to 28. And so we decided to apply. They have a month and a half. And in mid-January, we applied for a Major League Soccer franchise. And as did 12 cities around the country. So there are lots of folks that have applied for the franchises. And they have 4 criteria that we're looking for to determine whether or not you can become a Major League Soccer. One is you have to have an ownership group that will pay $150 million for the franchise, which is obviously a lot of money. Number 2 is you have to have and you have to be in a city that is a strong enough media market. So obviously, like all professional sports, the media markets are driven, the business enterprise is driven a lot by television and television revenue. So they want to be, MLS wants to be in the strong TV markets around the country. St. Petersburg is in the 11th largest television market in the country today. And the top 10, the first 10 media markets in the country are already in MLS. So that's a pretty good position for us to be in. That means we're the largest television market of every city that's seeking MLS right now, and we're in a larger TV market than about 14 other cities that are already in MLS. So media market, we're in pretty good shape. The third criteria that they're looking for is community support. And support, we're averaging somewhere between 5,500 people a game to our games. That's strong for Division II for USL. Orlando, for instance, was averaging, I'm told, 4,000 to 4,500 people a game before they went into MLS. They're now, 2 years ago, they're now averaging 24,000 people a game in Major League Soccer. So we've got good fans support, we've got sponsor support. We sent letters with our application from over 200 companies in our community. And it's small companies, medium-sized companies, and most of the major companies in our city sent letters in support of our effort. And a lot of them said that they would become founding sponsors for our MLS team. So companies like Jabil, the Whole Shopping Network, Raymond James, FIS, ASI, Duke, Nielsen, OPEC, lots of companies signed letters saying that they would support this. So we showed, I think, a very strong amount of corporate support. And then the fourth criteria is you have to have a stadium that holds 18,000 seats. And that's for Major League Soccer. So we've been playing at Alex Stadium. After Bill bought the team, he then put $3 to $4 million into the stadium of his money into renovating the Alex Stadium because it really needed to be upgraded quite a bit. If you've been, how many have been to a game in the last couple of years? Thank you. So you've seen there have been a lot of upgrades to that stadium. But you have to then make it into 18,000 seats. So we put together a plan that keeps the current outline main stadium, 6,000 seats, and then expands it by adding another section across the way. And I'll show you about a 1-minute video on it, and then talk for just a few minutes more, and then I'll take questions. Thank you. So the stadium, this is obviously the current outlying stadium. This is First Street here, and this is the bay, of course. And then over here would be the addition, and the addition would be 12,000 seats. There would be the suites and the patio suites would be in this section. There would be a bridge here. That's kind of an outdoor patio deck for refreshments and things for people to stand on. and watch the entertainment as we go. So there are, we met with the architects, which is populous. They're out of Colorado, and they just designed the Orlando Stadium. They designed stadiums in other places as well, of course. And we identified certain criteria. The criteria were based on our desire to do a couple of things. One is to make sure we comply with the waterfront master plan that was passed by the city about a year or so ago. And a second was, and really consistent with that, was that we wanted to make sure that it did not overwhelm the site. That it fit within the scale of the waterfront and fit within the scale of downtown St. Pete. And so the criteria we identified were first you have to have 18,000 seats. You have to have that. Second, that the new stadium has to fit totally within the current site that we have. So it would not go into the sidewalk, it would not go into the water, it would not expand beyond the site. And in fact, we wanted to actually bring it back a little bit. This here on First Street it's a very narrow sidewalk. If you've been to the Grand Prix and you're going from the North Circuit to the South Circuit, it's a bottleneck there, and it's just not a very pedestrian-friendly thing. And the other thing is, I've always felt that eventually, Beach Drive, as we developed Beach Drive, open school, Park Shore, and 400 Beach Drive, we required them to put those wide boulevards there, so with sidewalk cafes and everything, to kind of create these gathering places that we now have. There was always the thought, at least in my mind, that the Beach Drive walkway should continue all the way from the Vinoy Hotel all the way to the Dolly Museum. And that you should be able to eat at Park Shore or Cassis or anywhere along the way, park your car, and walk to the Mahaffey to go to the orchestra, or walk to the Dolly, or whatever. So there's just one very pedestrian-friendly sidewalk line and umbrella line and walkway all the way. So, of course, an impediment to that is you run into a stadium at some point. So what we've done here is we've widened this to about a 35-foot wide sidewalk area, and we're going to put cafe restaurants on the inside here. So these yellow are intended to be umbrellas that will go all the way to the Mahaffey and the Dolly over here, and allow you to continue that walkway. And then eventually, I think the city ought to continue it through here and connect right to the Beach Drive walkway, so that you can have that kind of walkway for the city. I think that would be good. Another criteria we identified is we wanted the height of the stadium to be of the roof of the new stadium to be close to the height, about the height of the Mahaffey Theater. So, and this will be within 10 feet of the height of the Mahaffey Theater as designed. Another criteria we wanted to keep the waterfront open. Those of you, like I, would want to St. Louis Cardinals spring training games and have a dog and look out over the water, how nice that beautiful view is of the water. We want to make sure we preserve that. So you can see this is left open both directions here. And on the next slide, you can see the view from the new stadium back onto the waterfront, which we thought was important as well. So it's about a $70 to $80 million stadium construction project. And the ownership is committed to paying for the construction of the stadium without the city, state, and county paying for the stadium. So, but in order to do that, we need to have a long-term lease. We've asked for a 25-year lease of the facility, and under our charter, we have a provision that requires you to go to the voters if you want to either sell or lease waterfront property for more than 5 years. When I was mayor, we did that twice. The first is when we wanted to bring the Dolly Museum into its current location. And we had to have I think we did a 100-year lease, and I think we need a 100-year option beyond that. So we, longer than lease. So we did that. It passed by over 70% of the vote. We had to do it again for we wanted to sell the old Dolly building to USF in order to expand the USF campus on Maple Road. And that also passed by over 70%. So we have a referendum. We're going to have a referendum for this. It's on May 2nd, which is next Tuesday. A lot of you probably have already voted. Thank you for doing that. If you voted yes, otherwise, no thank you. But hopefully you'll all vote for it. So it's coming up on May 2nd. The reason we had a special referendum is because we really don't know when MLS is going to make their decision. So we had asked for an earlier referendum. They say it's before. They initially said by the third quarter of this year. Now they're saying before the end of the year. And so that discussion process is underway right now as we go. And so we'll see where that's going. But we do have a referendum May 2nd. By the way, the cost of the referendum, $280,000 or so, Rowdies is paying. So with that, I'm hoping everybody will vote for it. I hope everybody will go to our game. When's our next game?
This Saturday.
This Saturday. Saturday night, come to the game, and we really, if you haven't been, it's a lot of fun. It's a family-oriented event. It's got lots of young people. It's not every people of all ages there, and it's exciting. And you go, and if you sit next to somebody who knows soccer, they can teach you soccer. With that, I'll take any questions that anybody has. You just go to your normal poll. Yeah, your normal poll place to vote. Pardon? Well, if you had early voting, if you had applied for early voting, you would have gotten count on that. But if you don't normally do early voting, then you go to the poll.
Okay, good to see you. I live, Jim Jackson, I live close to the stadium. As a matter of fact, your lights at the stadium illuminate my living room at night. People are asking me, we're the most fervent fans, where are other people going to park? Can you talk about parking infrastructure?
Happy to. Where do you live?
I'm in a vintage building called the Beacon. It's a fixer-upper, but I can walk to your games.
There are a lot of people who would like to live in that fixer-upper. I can guarantee you that. So first on the lights, let me say that one thing is I talked to most of the condominium associations now, Long Beach Drive, and to the Downtown Neighborhood Association, and that we talked about that issue. We will have LED lights. You can see them right here, in fact. There'll be some in the stands across the way, and here they'll be right under the roof, and they're directional LED lights, so they're not like the historic lights that really. I've heard a lot of people downtown say I can read in my living room with the lights off and around you. So our objective is to address that issue as well. Parking, we've worked very closely, really from the beginning, with Evan Maury, the parking official and the transportation folks in the city, and have identified a plan. I'll talk a little bit about it. Number one is, if I could go to one of the earlier groups there. One more. There you go. So, of course, we have about 300 plus parking spaces in the surface lot that's there right now. The Rowdies have also purchased a multi-garage, so we own that garage and park people in the garage right now for our games. Other parking nearby, the Northern Trust Bank building across the street has a parking garage associated with it. It's on 2nd Avenue South, which is really on a Saturday night is not, people generally don't get that far south to park on a Saturday night downtown. And it becomes, for our games, Rowdies parking right now. Across the street is the South Core Garage. South Core Garage has 6 floors of parking. And if I run out of time, I'll finish the answer to the next question. And one of those floors has been given to the James Museum, which I think is a good thing. The other 5 floors are available. USF has an 1,100 parking space garage 3 blocks away. Last year they agreed to leave that open during the Rowdies games. We did wind up meeting it because we didn't have demand. Just in general, there was no parking. And then the last thing I'll say is there was a downtown parking study done last year is identified both the parking in the whole downtown area and then within the core. It starts about 2 blocks off. Are you going to come down? Okay. I'll finish in a second. Peter?
Peter Short. Thank you. Which would you rather be? The president of the Major League Soccer franchise based in Tampa Bay, the governor of Florida, or the mayor of St. Petersburg?
So I'm going to answer that question as directly as I can. The parking study a year ago, it identified the parking in the core and the parking throughout the city. They identified 9,500 parking spaces that are in the core itself, which were a couple blocks off of the waterfront. And then they did a study for how many of those parking spaces at 8 o'clock on a Saturday night during a Rowdies game were available, right? And they found that 51% of the parking spaces of that 9,500 were available on Saturday night during a Rowdies game. And between that and the other things I've talked to you about, we've concluded, and I believe if you talk to the city folks, they would agree with this, there are over 2,000 excess spaces beyond what we would need for 18,000 seats. And I can go into the details. You take 60, if you assume the city's reports, studies, assume 16% of the parking are people that are walking up or Uber or something like that, and then 2.9 people per car going to games. And we've really looked at it, and we're pretty comfortable. It's more than us, too. As far as Peter's questions, I look at it.
I'm Gregory Wilson. Great to see you back here.
You too, Gregory.
Indeed, Major League Soccer is proving to be very successful in other markets. My other home in Portland, it's so successful that you cannot get in there. They had to form a women's league just to give people an outlet in soccer. And you can't get into those games anymore either. But this is St. Petersburg. And we kind of have a history of not showing up for games of a certain kind. And in keeping with Peter's challenge, if you happen to be in a position of greater influence in this city, what would you tell the Rays about increasing their attendance?
I'm going to talk a little bit about Portland since you brought it up. The Portland, and this is kind of an indication of what soccer can be. The soccer in Portland, they hold 18,000 seats in their stadium as well. And they have, they only sell out. What's that? In a rehab, I think minor league stadium as well, yeah. In a baseball stadium. And we really, when we were doing the design, looking at it, I really looked a lot at Portland because that's a great model for anybody that wants to do soccer. And they have this, so anyways, they only sell a certain percentage of season tickets. They can sell like entire non-season tickets. They've sold out for years. And then they have people camping out at night to try to get tickets to get into the game. They have, I think, one of the best traditions in any sport I've ever seen, and that's the lumberjack. That he has this 8-foot-long chainsaw that they have a big log behind. They're the Portland Timbers. They have a big log behind the goal, and then afterwards they would he would sliver. If they score a goal, they cut off a sliver of the log, about that wide, that big, and then they hold it up. The guy that does it, by the way, the lumberjack, I told my people from Portland, he's not had one beer in town in 10 years because people love this guy. And then they presented to people after the game the whole, you could